back to Navigating Neva. I am your host, Neva Nicole, and I am with my co-host, Wesley King.
Hello.
So we have a few announcements before we get started with our awesome guest that we have with us tonight. So we'll just tease you and hang you on for a second. So we have our guest of the year coming up. So we are going to vote. We're not voting. You're voting. We're going to announce the winner on the 17th. So you have till the 17th at 5 p.m. Eastern time to tell us who you think is the best. Right,
It's our
Wes?
end of year show. I know everybody loves watching their Spotify best of lists and their end of year TMZ wrap ups, right? That's what the cool kids watch. And so we're doing that. We're going to combine and go through all of our guests and share our stories from them and our best ofs. And so, yeah, get your votes in. So your best of and your favorite gets talked about and gets the award.
So, tonight, before we announce our guest, we are digging into something that matters on a human level, a community level, and honestly, a nationwide level if you live in the United States, and that's drowning prevention. But in the world of drowning prevention, there's statistics and there's oftentimes data or numbers that we need. And we're not being dramatic and it's not loud, it's silent and it's fast and it's overwhelmingly preventable. And we are going to meet with Annabelle tonight. Welcome, Annabelle.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here.
Yes. And we're going to talk
Absolutely.
about drowning and how this stuff happens from a clinical side.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am a Joyful Waters instructor. I am also previously a lifeguard. I worked at Summer Waves and I was a beach guard on Jekyll Island here in Georgia. But currently, I'm a Bachelor of Science in Nursing student, moving into my fourth semester, and I will graduate as a BSN in May.
6 months to go, right?
Yeah, 6 months to go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's super impressive, by the way.
yeah, and you're kind of on the front lines. Is that fair to say? And we'll get into it later, but you see both all ends of the scale, yeah?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially my previous lifeguarding experience and then now working on the clinical side and getting ready to move into my role as a nurse in May. I've seen a lot.
Yeah, I would argue to say episode 6 of The Pit might have hit you pretty hard, or episode 7, maybe. I don't remember which one, but
Yes,
you
it
know
was
which one I'm
somewhere
talking about?
in that
Yes,
middle
ma'am.
area. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was definitely a hard hitter for sure.
Yeah, that's a real life maybe. So to your point, and then to your point, Nicole, we do have some statistics, right?
We do?
Drowning is the number one cause of accidental death of children ages 1 to 4, right? Accidental death ages 1 to 4. It's real. And the number two cause of death for accidents of ages 5 to 12, 5 to 14. Both of my
Yeah.
children are in that range. True story. This is a fact. I made my children read this script that I'm reading off of right now before we got on the podcast. And my son, who's 12 and a half, looked at me and goes, yeah, I get it, Dad. My 8-year-old daughter, who's on the spectrum, looked at me and goes, look, Dad, I know how to read. Thank you,
Well,
Sadie.
I'm
But
just going to repeat that, Wes, because I
yes,
don't think a lot of people in America listen to that or ever hear that. I think we all know the ages 1 to 4, but I don't think a lot of people realize that
5 to
kids
14.
5 to 14, that's the second cause of intentional death. And I think the
Yeah.
first one is car accidents.
And I promise for our audience that may already know the statistics or maybe know better than we do, Annabelle is going to carry this forward in a minute. When you take in people on the spectrum, children on the spectrum, that spikes in an insane level. Also, 11 people die from fatal drownings and another 22 from non-fatal. And those of you that may or may not know, the non-fatals are really a financial burden and a long-term care challenge. So we've got to take into consideration every level of drowning, which Annabelle is also going to talk about, and how we don't track that well. So, Annabelle, we've loaded you up pretty well,
Yeah.
from tracking drownings to the amount of drownings to what you're seeing as you grow into your career.
Yeah.
So, happy holidays to you.
Yeah. So those numbers are also heartbreaking, but they're also really motivating because this is a fixable issue, right? Since
Accidental death. Sorry, go ahead.
yes.
Yeah.
So since 2020, when COVID rolled around, drownings have increased,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the coastal waterway states like Georgia, Florida, the Carolinas, and
Don't leave
Georgia
Texas
drowning.
out. Don't leave Texas out. They take great pride there too.
Texas too. And then Georgia's drowning rate is now slightly above the national average. And when we think about those 1 to 4 year olds, we really have to look at their developmental level. So 1 to 4 year olds, they, you have kids that run out in the street because they have no fear. 1 to 4 year olds, they don't have fear. They cognitively cannot understand fear. When you tell them don't get in the water by yourself because you might go under and then mommy won't see you, they don't really understand that
It's
because
not
they're
a
like,
burning hand on a stove site situation, right? It's not
yeah,
a right. I can see my hand get burnt, but I can't
yes.
understand what happens when I get in that water.
Yep. And then our kids from 5 to 14, so that's two different developmental stages. But from 5 to about 10, they're in this stage where it's kind of like, I'm trying to figure out who I am. I know I'm an independent being from my parents, and I don't want mom and dad to be hugging on me and kissing on me. And I want my friends to think I'm cool. And then you move into that prepubescent and pubescent stage where they think, oh, it's not going to happen to me. And
I'm
then,
invincible.
yeah, and they get in these waters, where the red flags are up. So there's riptide, there's contaminants, there's, wildlife in the waters, and something does happen to them. And it's all because education or skill was lacking.
Mm-hmm. And to carry forward factual, look at me, looking all sharing all my knowledge now. It's close to 50% of adults that don't know how to swim or have ever taken a swim lesson in the United States, and that nearly doubles, which I know equals 100%. So not quite. If you added race, creed, color, financial, location, location, location. So to your point, Annabelle, I'm not afraid at 12 years old, but my grandparent never learned how to swim. So now I may not drown when I was 14, but I'm certainly not going to teach my child how to swim because now fear does become an overtaking factor. So you take the lack of education, you take the fact that half of the country doesn't know how to swim, parenthetically, and you add the fear factor. I mean, you have your own reality TV show right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's dangerous because such a there's such a lack of knowledge surrounding water safety. And I don't think people realize just how important it is to be water knowledgeable, water educated, because there's just so many people that, oh, well, I never go to the beach. I never go to the pool. Well, what about when a hurricane comes and there's 6 foot of water and you and your children don't know how to swim and you have no other choice, right?
Yeah.
So,
Everybody goes on vacation, and those hotels and those places have hotels, right, Nicole?
Well, yeah, they do. But something I say constantly to people that that I see at work, no matter where I'm working, is that in our region, swimming isn't a sport. I wish it was. I mean, it is for some people, but more than anything, it's survival. And if you know me, I like to say that I think it's more important than reading. We might learn to read in first grade or when we're 5 or 6, but we should learn to swim between the ages of 1 to 4,
yeah,
or at
Or at
least
least get
learn the
started.
water
Yeah,
safety
yeah,
concepts here, right? So
mm-hmm.
it's
yeah.
it's a survival skill, and it's a survival skill because hurricanes could come in, flash floods could come in, you could fall. I mean, I'm sure Annabelle knows this, but there's people in Darien that work on shrimp boats and they can't swim.
Lake
Yeah,
Michigan, Gulf Shores. It's and I know a lot of our audience members are nodding their head. I see it. We're preaching to the choir here, but part of our discussion too is what happens when the choir doesn't hear us. And Annabelle, you're in the ER, right? You're in the emergency room. Is that
yeah,
accurate?
yes.
What is that? How does that hit you? What has that been like?
It's definitely, I can speak to the fact that there has definitely been an uptick, not only in what we have seen in our area, but also in other areas. I have friends that work up in Atlanta. They're not even near a beach. And they've also seen an uptick in drownings with residential pools, commercial pools. And so I definitely think it hits everyone hard. Of course, when anyone passes away, when anyone struggles from a preventable issue, it hits everyone hard. But I think it hits healthcare workers on a different level because it is our responsibility to advocate for our community and to educate our community. And so when things like this continue to happen, there's definitely a lack of education and advocacy somewhere. And so, that's why it's really important to do both of those things in the healthcare field.
And quick shout out to Atlanta. I believe it's this weekend, Nicole, if I recall, that the HBCU is doing their diversity and aquatics event with Gerald Harkness, and we have some friends in that. So to your point, there's work being done,
Yeah.
right? And we're getting out there and doing events. But what happens the next day? And I know Gerald, and I love the event, but tomorrow somebody's in the hospital and 11 more people drowned. And
Correct.
so we've got to find a way, to your point, of bringing that healthcare system and that community to these type of events and vice versa, because they're amazing work, amazing advocacy. Even our last guest, Nicole, last week,
Last week.
talked about that.
Yeah.
But like you said, Annabelle, it's happening everywhere. It's not just in the ER. It's not just in Atlanta. It's everywhere.
Yeah, and I mean, to kick back to, coastal Georgia, and really even the coastal Carolinas, we're the low country. So we are nothing but marshes, rivers, tidal creeks, and this big, wide ocean that we know more about space than we know about the ocean. We know more about why
Hashtag that
asteroids
line.
we know more about why asteroids form than why riptides change so quickly. So,
Wow.
it's so crazy to me. But the
Wait, it's
kids,
not the moon. I'm sorry, it's not the moon going up and down. I thought that's the whole. No, I saw that in a movie. Sorry, go ahead. I couldn't resist.
some people say that. But
Sorry.
and
But to
in this
your point,
area,
yeah.
yeah. And in this area, in the low country, or even, not in the low country, kids are going to grow up and go near water regardless. So they're going to get invited to a pool party. Their friend is going to invite them to the beach. Their friend is going to invite them to the river. I don't think I grew up with anybody or know anybody now who in my life who has not been to a river, been to the beach, been to a pool.
A hotel with a pool, a
Yeah,
vacation.
yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
so, it's really important that we are educating our entire community, not only children, but, their parents as well.
I think that's spot on. I think one of the you said it a minute ago. We know more about up than down, right?
Mhm.
And drowning only happens underneath. We have a good friend, Nicole Phil, who says you can't drown if your head's above water, right? And you and I, Nicole, and the people listening have this education and we have this knowledge. What we don't always have is that next part is it in the school systems? Are the mothers giving birth forced to hear an 8-minute video like they do in New York, right? Are there laws in each state? And I think that's a big part of having you on here is understanding what the next generation is fighting for and what the next generation like you is seeing based on your experiences.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely, nurses are such a big part of educating the community. And I think that nurses should be a large part of where the conversation started. But, I also think that not that nurses aren't intelligent, because obviously they are. I'm in this field, but it's just, I think that water safety has become such a like swept under the rug kind of thing. Like, oh, they have puddle jumpers, or they have, those little winglet things that you can put on. And so it's just kind of like oh, we'll do that next summer. We'll get them swim lessons next summer. So I think that's, something that really needs to be stirred back up in our area, especially.
Go ahead, Nicole.
So I wanted to say, you mentioned earlier about the children, the little kids, the
Mm-hmm.
1 to 4, and their developmental area. So I wanted to talk about the layers of prevention. So when we're looking at the layers of prevention, I mean, people have the layers of prevention, like the barriers, when we're talking about the fences, and that's not what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about like the skill, the supervision, the environment. Not that, I mean, for our listeners, there are barriers, and we like to talk about, learning to swim, learning CPR, locking the door, having a gate to the pool, having an alarm on your pool. Those are layers, and that's definitely what helps the kids 1 to 4. But we want to look at the layers of prevention, the three
Like we're
layers.
building a layer of cake here.
Yeah, we are. Lots of cakes.
Yeah,
wedding cake here.
exactly.
I will say, like Nicole was saying, skill. That's floating, that's swimming, that's treading your water. You don't have to have a perfect backstroke. You don't have to have a perfect butterfly formation. You just need to be able to survive if you're in a situation where you start to go under. And that's where starting early really matters. And like Nicole said earlier, the formal lessons before the age of 5. So when we're in that age range of no fear, that's one of the strongest protective factors that we have, because their little minds are also growing so much during this time that if we start it then, it's a skill that they'll never be able to forget.
I love the way that you connected the part of things we'll never forget to helping a parent understand that this is real, right? There's a disconnect if I say, well, they have the puddle jumper and the life jacket. It's just like saying if my father has a bad heart, well, or blood pressure, well, the blood pressure pump, or he'll take his Lipitor or whatever. Well, yeah, but he could also go for a walk, or he could also not eat fried food, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or in this case, I could put my kid in the tub early, or I could introduce water safety mechanisms in elementary school or in preschool or in home conversations. One of the things I've always talked about, and I know Nicole does this too, right? Everybody has a fire drill, stop, drop, and roll, right? How have we ever talked about where we can drown, where we can fall, how? And I know Steve Gorella talks about falling in the buckets and the tubs. Yeah, they seem silly, but it's also a real life exercise because, to your point, Annabelle, the child's learning. The child can absorb it. They're 3, they can pick it up, they figured it out. And as a parent, if I think like I'm doing my child some good and this is helpful, I'll let them watch Sesame Street for an extra hour, right? Same thing. I'll let them learn about this stuff because it's a lifelong skill. And I think building those two bridges are so vital.
Well,
Yes.
let's ask our guest since we have her on. For these kids ages 1 to 4 that come into the ER, are they drowning in a pool?
There's such a big gap. So some of them are in a pool, some of them are in the bathtub, some of them are just, they're curious kids and they stick their head in the toilet, and then all of a sudden their head is stuck in the toilet seat. So, there's such a,
Some are clothed, some are in swimsuits.
yeah, some are just running around being kids 1 minute and then there's silence the next. So, it's definitely, there's so many stories and so many things that we see, that we hear. And so drowning can happen anywhere where there is water. Like, and I don't think people understand that. Like,
there's a disconnect.
Yes. Like, you can have this much water, which is about 4 or 5 inches, and you can drown in that.
Yeah. I have a good friend whose child drowned in the bucket, the 5-gallon bucket. So every time I see that 5-gallon bucket, and the crazy thing is, it's got the little warning label that has the picture of the toddler toddling into the bucket, and that's exactly what happened to her. And it was on her back porch, and it was after it had rained. And this is probably one of the reasons I have you on as a guest. Where I get upset as an educator and an advocate is when the paramedics showed up at her driveway. They said she was fine and she didn't drown. Like, the kid was fine. But from the mother's perspective, the child was not alive in the bucket. Like, only because the mother intervened was that a different outcome when they arrived on the driveway. And that's where I get upset, because that is not a statistic or a data that's collected anywhere, because even the EMTs that showed up at the driveway, they're like, oh, they're fine. No, they weren't fine, and they need care. And when I teach CPR, I always tell people, I'm like, you have to follow up. You've got to go to the hospital because you ingested water or inhaled water. Like, you can't just be like, oh, we're fine. Like, that's not a thing.
It is for sure something that there needs to be a better tracking system, right? There needs to be something that when an EMS truck is called out to the scene of a drowning or a near drowning, what we call it, there needs to be like a pin that's dropped at the address they're being called to. And then there needs to be documentation, of course, without breaking HIPAA, but, there needs to be documentation of some sort. This is what happened. This is how it happened. This is the, eyewitness report that we got, so that we're seeing if there's a trend, so that we know where education and advocacy is lacking in our community.
Yes.
And not to mention that is, what can a doctor even put in the computer in their EMR system? The word drowning or near drowning, anything else. If I had a magic wand, an easy staples button, I would almost put that every death or every child death should have a thing that says, were they within 5 feet of water? And then that question would trigger an entire process to say, okay, they were near water. It doesn't, right? They may not have drowned, they may get hit by a car, but at least we would know where they're near water, and then we could start having an entire discussion on, were you near water, and then go down the list.
Well,
Because
and
we don't even track the types of drowning. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, and it's the thing is, like, we in nursing, we have different surveys that we use, right, to look at people's general health, people's mental health,
PAV scores, all those things. Yeah,
their
yeah.
obstetric status. You know, when people have a stroke, we have a thing that we fill out. And so I feel like because there's such an uptick in water related injury and water related death, that there should be some kind of, even if it's 2 questions: was the child near water? Yes or no? If yes, did they come in contact with the water, and is this where the injury occurred? Yes or no?
Almost like a virus.
Yes.
Almost, and I know the audience listening, for all you feedbackers, everybody, now's your chance to send your messages and write your letters. If you treat drowning like a virus, did you touch it? Were you near it? And you teach, in this case, and you treat water like that and connect the two, instantly every death in this situation will be tracked and logged, and automatically starting tomorrow, we'd at least say, well, these 11 people were near water in blank ways, and they touched water in blank ways. I've seen the movie Outbreak with Dustin Hoffman. It's a great movie. Nobody listening knows that, but it's a great movie. Point is all we have to do is come near it. We only need 4 inches of it and a lack of knowledge of it, and it's over. And we don't track that stuff.
Yeah.
So here's my question, because I absolutely think that we need to track stuff, and I didn't even know that we track strokes or that people put that data in there. But that makes sense, because I've seen from the American Heart Association all of the stuff that goes in there. I'm not on your side. So my question is, right now, the drowning documents that we get, they come from the coroner or the medical examiner, and I'm assuming that that comes from what they're putting on the autopsy or the death report. But that data it's not being recorded for drowning prevention. It's being recorded for just data collection. That's what I want to see changed, like tomorrow, like a short-term goal, not a long-term goal.
Yeah. And actually, you know, in nursing, we actually we prepare nursing diagnoses, right? So they're not medical diagnoses, but, you know, let's say a child did have a near drowning experience. We monitored them for the allotted amount of time that we were told to monitor them. And, you know, then the parent takes them to a doctor, and they're like, I don't know, she just gets so anxious when we go to the beach. Our nursing diagnosis would be anxiety,
right,
to a near drowning event, as evidenced by, you know, tearfulness when mother brings her to the beach.
PTSD.
So there's definitely some things that I feel like could be done to better track this stuff, because, you know, we use these words like related to, as evidenced by, you know, in relation to. So if we're using these phrases,
as a result of,
yeah, you know, if we're using these phrases that link these issues together, why are we not tracking it on a deeper level?
Sounds like concussion protocol.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not to divert and use too many analogies, but you get hit in the head, there's a test to decide if you have a concussion. You have to pass that test to get into play again. Drowning, you nearly drowned. You're showing signs of anxiety or PTSD and all the symptoms and all the things. There's things we can do to help you, but if we don't diagnose it that way, you're never going to recover from it because you never got the help you needed. And that's just for the people that recover safely and are able to go live a decent full life, let alone the ones that have physical challenges or mental limitations.
Correct. Yeah.
So Joyful Waters, that you're certified in, was actually written for people that fall into whatever it is you just described, you know, where, or as Wes said, the people that have PTSD from an experience. That's where it came
Mm-hmm.
from. That's its foundation. And I talk to a lot of people who teach, and they don't teach older people with fear. They teach babies who have no fear. So they're not running into what I see and what I'm running into. So they have a different methodology and a different approach. But that's not what I see. And a lot of the people that I teach are adults or men at FLETC that are coming, and they have some type of trauma or anxiety related to this, and they have to get over this. I wanted to bring up a point when you guys were talking about the concussions and stuff. Wes and I were in Florida last year at the National Drowning Prevention, and they were
Yes.
talking about stuff that I didn't even know. And, I've been training lifeguards for decades and centuries, and not centuries, but it feels like it. And
This century, in this
uh-huh,
century.
well, in this century, but when you teach teens, it feels like eternity is going, it's just never ending. But they were talking about the cause of the drownings. And I think you're going to have to correct me here that the information that they were sharing is only gotten if they get an autopsy. So for example, a few of the people, they didn't drown. They had a heart issue, like almost a
A
health.
secondary medical condition.
Yeah, but it has another word. So the lady that had the synchronized swimming that went down, she has the same thing. So basically, it's like you have a medical condition that you probably wouldn't be cleared to play football if you had this, yet you're allowed to swim.
Like an
Like,
arrhythmia.
yeah, like those things. So when we're saying it's a drowning, it wasn't really a drowning, but it's now documented or it is filed as such. But we're not doing that, right? You would have to ask for that on an autopsy, or is that stuff you guys are looking at?
I really think, of course, we always take in patients' comorbidities. If, like Nicole, let's say you had a heart condition called atrial flutter, and you were swimming and you felt yourself getting a little tired, you felt your heart kind of skipping and racing, but you were like, I'm going to keep going. And you get into the deeper end of the pool and you're like, okay, woo. And then it comes in, where people are like, oh, I know how to swim. I don't know how to properly float. And then the next thing you know, they're at the bottom of the pool. So we definitely look at things like that. But as far as what the coroner looks at, I'm not sure if he's taking those things into account. Like, oh, Nicole had atrial flutter and that's why we're in this situation. Or if he's looking at it as, well, she was in the pool and the water killed her. So that's what we're going to call it. So
By no fault of their own, even to that point, sometimes by no fault of their own, because that's just what the state does, or they're told to do, or the structure is. And I don't know enough to know, but I know that nobody's out there purposely ignoring it.
yeah,
That just the system they're in.
yeah. And it's definitely because, as a nursing student, our education is really, really focused on education, advocacy, and factual, like evidence-based practice. We actually call it EBP. So evidence-based practice, it actually teaches us to look at, okay, this person has a history of blood clots. Now they get pregnant. Now they're at an even more, higher risk for blood clots because they have that predisposing condition. So we definitely take those things into account, but I'm not sure where it's falling in the cracks as far as like drowning goes.
Great. It sounds like you should meet Andy Graham from Medical Fitness, because that's their entire world is evidence-based research and data. For medical fitness, not for drowning, but it's the same process. But like you said, there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle that
Yes.
that don't make it. We started this whole conversation with it not being forefront, with it not being top of mind, with people thinking it's not going to happen to them, and everything we've talked about layers into that. There's your word, layering, to say here's why. We
Yeah.
don't have all the information. More people drown than we know, or it's misreported. And then we go home and go, oh, I've got a life jacket, or, et cetera. And so it's just, yeah, wow. It's just a great perspective.
Well, and a lot of parents think, after, you see a kid bob their head in the water and they come up and they're coughing and water comes up and parents are like, they coughed up the water. They're talking. They're fine. But medically, that's not accurate. Like
Great
any,
line. Keep
and
going.
Nicole can probably speak to this, any water inhalation, it's non-negotiable. You need to at least go to an urgent care and have the child monitored for a couple of hours, because we look at, immediately when parents bring their kids in and they say, oh, so and so went under the water and he coughed up water, but he's just having like trouble breathing. I don't know. He just seems like not like himself. We're looking at secondary drowning. We're looking at acute respiratory distress. We're looking at a hypoxic brain injury. And then, a lot of parents, they'll be in the ER for 3 hours and we're still watching the child and they're like, oh, we've been here for so long. And while I understand it, nobody wants to have date night in the ER. I don't want to have date night in the ER, y'all, but the serious neurological decline can happen 12 to 27 hours after they aspirate a little bit of pool water.
It's
So,
not the leading cause and the second leading cause for no reason, right? And
Yeah.
then
well,
to your point, like these, I mean, this is no, anyway, go ahead, Nicole.
so
Yeah.
for my question as a mother and a grandmother with children everywhere, that 12 to 27 hours, why is that delay so long? Like, I think that's where the education is lacking. I would assume, oh, if they choked on some water and they're fine now, they're good. For the parents listening, why are we looking 12 to 27 hours after the initial event? Why is there like a delayed onset?
So it's really, we really have to kind of think about poison, right? So, God forbid your child eat a roach tablet. I'm not saying anybody's kids are eating roach tablets, but
Not
if
for
they do,
breakfast.
We'll pretend my
yeah.
dog did it. Let's pretend my dog did it.
Okay, so your dog eats a roach tablet, and you're like, oh man, I should probably take him to the vet. And the vet says, well, we got to call the poison control people because there's some risks associated with said roach tablet. It's the same thing with children and when they aspirate water. So when they aspirate water, when water goes where it's not supposed to be, so in our airway, your body kind of goes, wait a minute, you're not supposed to be here. And it's trying to kind of figure out what to do with the water. So it can just sit there, and then you've got acute respiratory distress. It can be kind of absorbed into what we call interstitial spaces within the body. So that will cause pulmonary edema, which is going to cause that shortness of breath, that difficulty, the fatigue, even because your work of breathing is so hard. And then from that, we can kind of see that neurological decline. So it's really important to have these kids monitored just because of the way their bodies are. And I mean, kids are much more resilient than adults. I think we can all agree on that. But kids being monitored, adults also need to be monitored, not for that long of a period, because our bodies have typically adapted a little better and said, okay, I know what to do with this. I'll get rid of it. Kids, that may be the first time that's happened to them. And, hopefully the last time, but, their bodies are like, what's going on? I don't know what to do. So that's really why it's so important to monitor them, because with kids, they go from happy and playing and running around and like, getting on your last nerves to silence. And you're like, oh,
where are they?
What are they doing? So and that's so true on the clinical side and also on the personal side. So because we've seen kids go from running around and playing, and then all of a sudden they're on the floor, and we're like, okay, so we need to hurry up,
Right.
So
it's like the concussion, right? You don't let, so we've always said, I mean, I'm a 70s baby. You know, he said, well, don't let him go to sleep tonight. Don't let him go to sleep tonight. Well, this is very much no different of don't let him go unmonitored. Don't let him go unpaid attention to. And again, for audience members, we might be preaching to the choir here, but if you've got friends or family that haven't listened to this, that don't know this, that don't want to hear me talk about it, somebody much smarter than me, like Annabelle and Nicole, share this podcast with them so they can have that perspective. Like, well, I didn't know that. I never thought about it like that. Well, when they choked on the hot dog, they threw the hot dog up. Okay, well, this is a little different, right? So paying attention to all of those facts and even being aware of, were you near water, right? Are you going to be near water? And having that conversation with your 12-year-old or your 13-year-old. Like I said, my son's 12 going at age 65, but we have that. Are you going, do they have a pool? Are they going to be? And that's just like do you have your key with you? Don't get into a stranger's van. Are you going to be near water, right? It should be part of the vernacular.
So let's go back to the hospital, because I'm still confused. I'm so lost on why we're in 2025, almost 2026, and not doing this. So we have really big advances on strokes. And why do you think we're lacking in drowning? Do you see less drownings when you're at work? I mean, like when kids are coming in, what is it usually for? Like, why aren't we looking into the preventative side of it more?
I would definitely,
without the weight of the world on you, by the way. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I definitely think that there is, like I said, a lack of education, a lack of advocacy. But I think this stems from I'm a political level, right? Like we see so much, our senators are old. What can I say? And if one of our senators has a stroke and there wasn't all of this protocol where we know what to do and we know how to do it,
nobody's going to drown on the House floor. Nobody's going to drown on whatever side you sit on. Nobody's going to drown in a cup of water voting in the legislature.
Mm-hmm. And what senator is thinking about, I'm going to use Brunswick, what senator is thinking about little old Brunswick, Georgia, that with a Walmart and a Sam's Club and a Publix,
unless you're Virginia Graham, right? There's only one law in the country. God bless Virginia Graham. And I don't mean that negatively for anybody listening. I'm just saying there's one law in the country and it's named after a God bless a little girl and the senator behind it.
Yes.
So to your point, unless you're her, or John Benet Ramsey or somebody that can gather the world together, which we need that, but we also need to have that happen without the names behind it. And there's a lot of people making decisions for us in the world. And again, whatever side of the aisle you sit on, or if you don't, the whole point is that's the people giving the money, giving the legislation, giving the support, paying the teachers, provide, and I think you bring up a good point. It's not easy to talk about, but I think you're not wrong.
And you see a need for this from the ER standpoint. Is there a lot of them happening? Okay.
Yes. I'm going to pull in both my clinical experience and also my previous lifeguarding experience. Like the amount of people that we had to either do CPR on, pull out of the water, because either we were pulling them out of the water because they fell off a boat because they were drinking, or they didn't have a life jacket on, or they didn't have the life jacket on correctly, or they were sunbathing and then they were drunk and the tide came up and now they're in the water. And, so I think there needs to be.
Doesn't matter what part of the country you're in, by the way, that story holds true all across the country. Yeah. Yes. Keep going. Sorry. Yeah.
I definitely feel like there needs to be a national call to action because, like I said, anywhere there is water, you can drown.
Were you near water?
Yes. And it's like you could, your blood pressure could be low and you pass out into the puddle of water and you drowned.
And we wouldn't know about it because we don't have a way to report on it statistically. Other than if the right chain of command got lucky enough to mark it that way. Sorry.
I feel like the saying holds true. Nothing is going to be done until something really bad happens.
Well, and go ahead.
I don't want to see that happen, but it's like we've talked about the statistics tonight. We've talked about how there is a steady uptick in drownings everywhere, nationally, in the Low Country, in the middle United States, on the Pacific coast, everywhere there is an uptick in drowning. So Why is nothing being done?
And yet there's so many more franchise swim schools. I mean, wait, what? Wait, how is that possible? There's so many more chain swim schools on every block corner with every name, and yet more. I don't understand it. That's a conundrum. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna say this because it's my podcast and nobody pays me, so I can say what I want. But nobody cares until it happens, is all I'm gonna say. And I
Hmm.
teach CPR and I teach swim lessons, and no one is interested in getting CPR certified until something. I can't say touched by a drowning because I think Ellis coined that phrase with their video, the touched by a drowning. But until you are touched by a water incident, you don't care. And then I think there's the political side to that where we aren't healing from our own trauma. So if I thought Wes was watching my kid and Wes thought I was watching my own kid, then there's this blame to be pushed, and nobody wants to talk about that or revisit that or admit to that. So then we just shove it under the rug because we're not grown up enough to deal with the problem. And then the problem just spreads like an STD that we didn't cure. That's how I view it.
We've had a
Um,
concussion reference, an STD reference. Drowning is getting a lot
I
of.
decided Facebook told me sex sells, so I was just going to take it and run.
Amen. But to your point of national crisis, I'll just share this about what it takes for people to change their behavior. After 9/11, I taught CPR for almost 2 years in every downtown high-rise building in Chicago. I did it for the Red Cross. I used to dress up as Chris Farley, as Matt Foley in a fat suit, and perform CPR class as that character to a bunch of old men and women that didn't care. But to your point, Nicole, it took bombs into buildings to get people to even care about CPR. The problem is people drown every day. And God bless the skiers and the musicians and the famous influence that have had their children drowned, but those are individuals. Until 40 children drown in a pool in one place, the national word, I think, is going to be challenged. And so, what we're doing here, I believe in, and what you're doing, Annabelle, and being on the front lines, and these conversations are not easy, but I think are important.
I think it'll
I
change
feel,
if we're persistent.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I feel like
Nobody likes to nag, right?
yeah, I feel like there's definitely a seed to be sown. Just kind of placing a seed, like if you, and anybody can do this. It doesn't, you don't have to be CPR certified or, a water aquatics educator. You can literally walk up to people, and say, hey, I saw your kid running, by the beach, and I just brought him back up here with me because I didn't see you around. And you can just kind of walk off and mind your business, right? Like, but that's just kind of like a seed planted, like you weren't paying attention.
Right. I'm not going to give my water watcher tag because you didn't earn it, but here's what
Yeah.
it is. And
I,
if you think I don't carry those to the beach bags with me, I may or may not. I don't have a lot of friends on the beach because I carry them around. But uh, I mean, it's okay to be silly and talk about it because I'd rather do that than talk about the alternative.
yeah. And, it's always, I carry this all the time with me. What would I rather see? An irritated mom or an irritated dad or aunt, grandma, whoever, cousin, whoever it is, because I said, hey, I brought little Sally back up here because she was by the water, and then walk off. And
And
that's
then what? I'm gone. Yeah.
or do I want to see little Sally on the stretcher going into the ambulance?
Right. Or a search party because we're all looking for little Sally because that's
Yeah.
where
Right.
people like me usually see that. You and
Yeah.
Kimberly see it from the other side.
Yeah.
Like when they're rolled in on the stretcher, but we're
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
where could they be? And we're looking
Mm-hmm.
high and we're looking low and we're like, we really hope they crawled into this cupboard, but really they're in the pool
Yeah.
or the bucket of water or the toilet
Yeah.
or the mop bucket because
Mm-hmm.
it's not always a pool. So usually I don't do this, but you said seed to be sown. So we're going to do some self-promotion. Wes is going to love this. So I have this great book right here called Swim With Me. So everybody on YouTube can see this book. And the concept behind this book is I got Ed Hose to illustrate it. So if you're local and you know who she is, she did all our artwork. But it tells you to, one, put your kid in swim lessons, but two, swim with them between the lessons. Because I'm not sure if you can attest to this, but I see not a decrease. They revert. So between lessons, they're not. We're
There's no, they go backwards a little bit.
Yes, and you're like, wow, what happened? And it's just because of that education component that we're missing. We don't know what to do with our kid, so we don't do anything. So I told you what to do with your kid because I will play in the water forever and be mermaids. So there's numerous games. The whole concept is the book is the girl goes to her swim class and then her and her mom swim. She goes to class, her and her mom swim. And every time they're swimming, they're doing a different thing. And I got more. So we have Miss Dana's I Will Wait. So when we're going back to those 1 to 4 year olds that go to that body of water or the end of the dock or the bridge or even the bathtub where there's water, I will wait because parents have to teach the boundaries because like you were talking about the developmental stages at 1 to 4, you don't know that. And you can also get my book and put it in your kid's stocking or Easter basket or Christmas present, whatever.
Hanukkah, it all works.
Anything.
Kwanzaa,
yeah.
we're open.
They got 100 on their spelling test. So I Will Wait is local stories, Annabelle, from here in our area of everybody who is alive today, but they could not have been. So it just talks about when we're going to ask for permission and why we're going to wait while mom puts her sunscreen on. We're going to wait because mom's putting her sunscreen on. Mom's not ready yet. So I can't get in the pool because mom's not with me.
Yeah.
But very, very basic things. You're just waiting that boundary for the 1 to 4 year olds.
Yeah. And it
Absolutely.
is, bringing back cognitive developmental stages. Little kids, like from 1 to 4, they're very like squirrel. So you really have to, like you said, reinforce what you're teaching them. Reinforce, that you are the parent. We have boundaries, we have rules, and I expect you to follow them. Because that way, if you're doing that over and over and over and over again, like one of my nieces picked her nose. She is not picking her nose anymore. She's, when she grows up and sees this, she's going to be very upset with me, but
she'll know who she is too.
Yeah, we have had to tell her, me, her mom, her granny, my husband, we have had to tell her, don't pick your nose. That's nasty. You're going to get sick. Don't pick your nose. And until we said it to her for the millionth time, she didn't stop picking her nose. So I hate to bring in picking the nose, but it goes back to water safety. If you're not telling them, wait for mommy to get in, she calls me B-Bell, wait for B-Bell to get in, wait for Miss Nicole, wait for Mr. Wesley. If you're not telling them to wait for an adult every single time you're near a body of water, they're not going to do it.
We had a thing with my daughter in shoes and the sidewalk. And so she would try to put different shoes on in different types of weather because she didn't want to put shoes on because she was just going to the sidewalk. And so it wasn't picking your nose, but it was, you cannot, well, it's nice out. No, but you can't do, the sidewalk is not always not, I don't clean the sidewalk. The driveway, but I can get, and so, I mean, this was, what shoes can I wear? Can I wear my high heels? Can I wear my doll shoes? No, you have to wear regular human, normal people shoes, and you put them on your normal people feet, and you have to, but so anyway, it's not, no, but you're right, and so then it got to the point where she would just stand there and mock us, and then make fun of us because she knew the rule too well, but you're right, repetition is key, and if we don't lead the charge will not be there, so absolutely. This has just been outstanding and wonderful, and again, for our audience members, if we are preaching to the choir, which we assume we are, I know what assume means, but we assume we are, share this with a friend. It costs nothing to share this for the holiday season. We know people are going to need a chance to go away from their children. Let this be their 45 minutes. We know Dex Shepard has a podcast. We know Joe Rogan has a podcast. We thought Nicole would think I wouldn't get away with talking about other podcasts in this episode, but I snuck it in on purpose. I waited to the end just to trick her. So listen to this podcast instead of the other cool people podcasts and join this charge. So that's my last plug. So there, Nicole.
I love that. So my wrap up is that this is how we protect our kids and it's how we protect our community. So I've been giving you guys call to actions. If you heard anything tonight that Annabelle said, take that as your torch and run with it through your town or your house, wherever you want. Just run with it. Take it and run. All we can do is help to spread it like wildfire. But for real, we really want to spread this one. Fire.
Wildfire is another analogy. Concussions, wildfire, STDs. We got drowning and water totally analogized today. Metaphors, symbolisms. My son's going to be so proud. Yeah. He's learning all these things in school, so I could tell him I made drowning into an STD today. Nicole did, but I'll take it.
Well, we really appreciate you for being on tonight, and we're always
Yes,
happy to
thank you,
have you
Annabelle.
back. And
Yes.
congratulations on your degree.
Yes, six more
Yes,
Thank you.
months.
yes.
Exciting for you. And thank you, audience members. Don't get to vote and share Annabelle's story and all the facts we learned or relearned. And thank you, everybody.
All right. Take care, guys. Until next time, we'll see you in a week. Goodbye.